In this workshop we will be learning about three things: fixing the RMS level, inserting or replacing mistakes, and correct order of effects. So first let's start with the RMS. So what is actually RMS? RMS is actually the measurement of average loudness of your audio. So there are two kinds of loudness. One is the peak loudness and other one is the average loudness. Peak is the highest point. Only one point of the audio will be represented by the peak, and the RMS means how loud it is in general, overall. And if you working with audiobooks, then ACX has a particular requirement about this RMS level. If you go to this ACX audio submission requirements, you will find that it has a requirement of the RMS to be between -23 dB to -18 dB. And if you check in software like Audacity, then Audacity has a plugin called ACX check, that is external plugin. So in any recording you can actually use this ACX check. Select the file and go to analyze and go to the ACX check. In ACX check you will see the peak level, RMS level, and the noise floor. So we are interested on the RMS level in this workshop. Now how do you fix this RMS level? The RMS level has to be -23 to -18, but it is -29. So the first thing is the peak is not right for this audio. It is showing as -7.23. The peak should be -3, and the fix of the peak is to use the normalize effect. Go to effect, add volume and compression, and go to normalize. In normalize, set this to -3 and apply. So now this audio has been normalized to -3 dB, and if we go to ACX check again, we can see the peak has been now -3. It has been fixed, and RMS has increased a bit. The RMS has increased because the peak has increased, and RMS, peak, and noise floor, everything works in a linear fashion. If you increase one, then the other values will increase. Now, though the peak is now -3, the RMS is not in the spot of -23 to -18. So how do we fix that? To fix that, we have to apply the compressor. So always keep in mind, when increasing the peak is not an option, but you have to increase the RMS level, you have to apply the compressor effect. So we cannot increase the peak level anymore because it is now -3, and the RMS is -25, which is lower than what it is required. So now we'll add a compressor. I'll go to effect, volume and compression, and compressor. And this compressor settings may look a bit complex, but the easiest way to configure is to use a preset. So go to factory presets and choose lead vocals, and in lead vocals all these areas, look ahead, attack, release, all these things are ready. You do not have to worry about these when you are compressing a voiceover or your audiobook narration. The two things you will be working with will be the threshold and the ratio. So let me explain a bit what does this threshold means. The threshold means the activation point of the compressor. You can see this is the activation point, which is now set to -14. If I decrease this, you can see that this point is shifting, it is getting lowered. So with this threshold means now it is set as -31. So if the threshold is -31, that means whenever your audio crosses -31, the compressor will be active. And if I set it to -10, then only the compressor will be active when it crosses -10. So you can understand that this is -10 something here, and this is -30. So you can see if I set something like 30, then the compressor will be kind of always active and it will compress all the audio. But if I set something like 10, then the compressor will be only active when it crosses -10, and the compressor will be active sometimes, not always. So in the factory presets lead vocal, it is -14, and -14 works okay most of the time with most voiceover. If you need compressor to be more active, then you have to set a lower value like -18 or something like that. So for this demonstration, let's try with -14 and let's see what it does to the RMS. And then the ratio. With the ratio, you can understand the slope of this line. So if I set it to like 100, then you can see that this line has almost become flatter, and if I set it to something like 1, you can see that this line is quite sharp. And what is the ideal value of ratio? The ideal value of ratio is generally 2 to -4, so it should be between 2, or the maximum you can set or should set is 4. When you need more compression, you will increase the ratio. If you do not need heavy compression, you will be stick on something like 2, 2.8, 3, this kind of. So for this audio, let's try with 2.8, and if we see that we are not still achieving the RMS level with this ratio, then we can undo this compressor and apply another compressor settings the way we need. So I'll apply these settings, and when I applied the compressor, you can see the waveform shrunk, or at some point actually it kind of cut off. Now if I go to ACX check, we can see what it has does. It has set the peak level to -6, which was -3 before, so we can see that it has altered the peak, and the RMS is -25. So we are not seeing any increase in the RMS level yet, but the trick is just after the compression you have to apply the normalize again. So you see, only compression will not increase the RMS. It is actually increasing, but we cannot see its effect unless we apply the normalize. So we'll apply the normalize. This is -3. I apply the waveform grew overall, and I will go to ACX check. You can see the peak is now -3, the RMS is now -22, which is inside the range. So you can see, using the combination of the compressor and normalize, I could increase the RMS level. So the peak is has not increased because it is still on -3, but the RMS was -25 before, and now it is -22. So you can see that using the compressor we can increase the overall loudness of the audio. Now let's say you wanted more compression, like you wanted a more increase in the RMS. So what should we do? Well, so if a more increase in the RMS is required, then you have to apply the compressor with a bit of aggressive settings. But you should not apply compression multiple times without knowing what you are doing. So for this audio, what I'll do, I'll undo this compressor effect. So how I can do that? I will go to history, and you can see that in this point I had applied the compressor. So I'll go back before that the normalize. So I'll be in this point, the arrow is pointing here. I'll click OK. Now I'll just check the ACX check. So I can see that it is now in the level which it was before applying the compressor, and I'll apply a different compressor settings because I want more increase in the RMS. Do not assume that we always need more increase in the RMS. I'm just showing you the point when you need more increase in the RMS, what to do. So this is the last settings I applied. As I said, we can, if I need more compression, I can increase the ratio, or I can decrease the threshold a bit, or I can do both. Let's try with these settings, and always keep in mind that too much compression can make the sound unnatural. So you should be careful with the compressor settings. You should not compress very hard, otherwise the audio will sound quite unnatural. So I'll click apply, and I'll go to ACX check. Once again, we are not sure actually how much increase has been in the after the compressor, so I'll go to normalize effect again. I'll go to ACX check again. Now we can see that the peak is -3, but the RMS is not hasn't increased that much because I have not applied a heavy compression. So I'll quickly show you a bit aggressive settings. Okay, so here we can see more compression. Okay, so I'll set the threshold to like 17 and I'll increase the ratio, not 3.4. okay, I'll apply and I'll normalize again to -3 and A6 check. Well, now we can see that the peak is -3 and the RMS is -21, which was -22 before. So if I need more increase in the RMS, I could lower the threshold more and increase the ratio a bit more. So that is how you control the RMS of the recording. So the basic is like this. You should have apply a normalize effect before you apply the compressor, otherwise the lead vocals preset I have shown you may not work, because if the audio never crosses any of the threshold level we set, the compressor will not be active. So normalizing it to -3 first will allow it to have some audio levels to be compressed by the lead vocal configuration I have used, and then you use a compressor and then you use a normalize. So normalize, compression, normalize, this is the way. Okay, let's see the second point, inserting or replacing mistakes. Now when we record a chapter, we oftentimes we make a mistake and we need to replace certain parts. And how do we do that in Audacity? So let's say this is something, I am expanding this is something, let's say it need to be replaced. So how do I replace it? Now to replace it, what you can do, you can click the mouse where you need to replace and then you press Shift R. You can also hover your mouse over on the red record button and you will see that there is option like append record shifter. So let's see what happens if I press Shift R. Okay, it has started recording from the end of the audio clip because of this Audacity preference. In my okay, so record on a new track is my default, so I'll undo this. Okay, now let's say this is the point. If I click on now shifter, you can see that it is now started, has recorded from the place where I place the mouse, and with shifter you can see the recording progresses. So what I can do, I can select this recording, I can copy this, edit and copy, and I can replace the part which it need to be replaced. I can go to edit and I can go paste. So you can see this audio has been replaced. Now there is a issue with this kind of replacement because the other parts of the audio before this and after this are already has been processed, but this part is raw. So when you are inserting audio inside already processed audio, you have to actually process this recording. After recording, you go to select this recording and you apply the standard process. I have a macro for that, and if you don't have the macro, you can get it from me, or if you have access to my Audacity bundle, you already have access to such macros. So you can see that this audio has been now processed and I can replace with this thing. I'll copy, Control C, I'll select this and I'll Control P. So this is the way you can replace in your already recorded track in Audacity. So I'll just show you the preferences again, because depending on the preference, if you go to recording and if you have this record on a new track checked, then the behavior would be a bit different. Okay, so when you have that and if you press the Shift and R, the recording actually started from the end of the audio file, you can see. And if you just press this take the cursor here, and if I just press the record, you can see that now it is recording from the new track. So you have to check how your preference is set. In my preference, if I undo this, if I don't keep this check, then by default the recording will start from end of the recording, end of the audio, end of the track, as you see. So be careful about that one a bit. So that is how you replace the error part or mistakes on your audio. But you should also know that there is a way to record in such a way so that your audio don't get this so you can easily spot your mistakes, and that is called the clicker technique. So whenever you are recording an audio and whenever you have made a mistake, you will repeat the full sentence. You will not repeat just the word, you have to repeat the full sentence. So it will be like this, and whenever you make a mistake, then you kind of either you introduce a gap, like you stay silent for a long time, or sometimes you can use a dog clicker or some kind of mechanism which can help you to easily spot that where the mistake is. Let's say this is something. So I have started recording the audio, and let's say I have now made a mistake. What I will do, whenever I make a mistake, I will use a click method. So you can see I just have inserted a click, and let's say I have made another mistake. So you can see this sharp and this clap sound has made sharp spikes, and I can easily identify that this is the part of the audio where I had made mistakes. So I can listen to it, and then I can delete those things. So it is necessary to delete these before you let's say this is the error part, I delete this is another error part, I delete this, but I kept these markers or these click points. So what will happen if I now go to effect and normalize? You can see after the normalize, the audio has shrunk more, because these are actually quite high peaks, and that is causing some kind of disturbance in my normalize method. So what I should do, I actually should remove these things, because this is not part of my recording, or this is not part of my intended audio. And if I now normalize this, you can see the waveform has increased in height. So it is important to note, whenever you are using those kind of clicker technique, you should remember to remove those before you start processing your audio. So that is how you remove the mistakes. Now let's talk about this correct order of effects. Well, correct order of effects like declicker or DSR, what you should actually at which point you should use these effects. Now the standard processing should be like this. You should use normalize, then noise reduction if necessary, then EQ, then a compressor, then the normalize. So this is the standard effects. And if you have to insert a declicker or DSR, then the ideal place of those things should be when you have noticed the issues or problems. So for example, let's say you started noticing the click sound just after the first normalize, and now you first use the noise reduction, and then you can use those declicker or DSR. But let's say you notice the click sound, mouth clicks, or the sharp SS after the compressor and after the last normalize, after all the processing, then you can actually apply those after all the processing has been done. So it is not like it has to be a rigid place where these has to fit. It is kind of where you are noticing this thing, and then you start applying those effects like declicker or DSR. But the rule of thumb is you have to be careful that you are not using those effects too aggressively. If you use those effects too aggressively, then it will start distorting your audio. So you have to be careful that you are not distorting the audio by applying a heavy declicker or DSR. Now if you are using Audacity, then I have a suggestion of a good free plugin for you, that is the Acoustinas Era 6. And if I go to effect, this is a third party Acoustinas Era 6. This is Era 6, and you can see that they has the DSR, they also have the mouth declicker, this thing. So you can kind of, these are quite good and you can use this, and it works quite okay. It is just, you can kind of use it using this knob, processing knob. Keep it below 50%, do not go too much higher, then you will see, if you listen to your audio, then you will see that it is distorting your audio. It also has mode normal or broad. You have to play around with your settings, that which one is working good for you. So by default 40% works quite okay. If you need to increase a bit more, then go to 50%, but not more than that. So this Era 6, it has a pre-downloadable version on internet, so you can use that for mouth declicker or DSR, this kind of thing. So I think you get the point, all the points in this workshop. I think you got these. And let's say if you are using so before now I will show you something with Adobe Audition, like how to do these things in Adobe Audition. But before that, I want to show you one thing, like if you want to get one-to-one training from me, then I have a audiobook training, one-to-one consulting with 5 calls, where I will either teach you to this one. So with this I will either teach you to how to produce an audiobook from start to end using Audacity or Adobe Audition in 5 calls. You can also do that, or you maybe already know how to record and process, but you are ready for the final push and you are trying to publish your audio in SCX or other audio platforms. Then I'll check 3 chapters with you. I'll work through 3 chapters to help you to complete 3 chapters through these 5 calls. So I'll put this link in the description. Please check it if you are looking for such help. And now let's see where are the RMS and other options in Adobe Audition. If you are using Adobe Audition, let's see where it is. So in Adobe Audition, what you have to do, you have to check the RMS from the window amplitude statistics. If you go amplitude statistics and if you click on scan, you will see the RMS, the total RMS amplitude and the peak amplitude, all these things are here. Once again you can normalize it, and after normalizing you can scan again, and you can see the values of the peak and RMS is updating. This is the way you can measure these things. And like what we have seen in Audacity, you will have to use a compressor, and the soft compressor is the starting point, and let's say the threshold is 14, ratio is something like this. I'll apply this, and as the last step after compressor, always remember to normalize. I scan. You can see that the RMS has increased. This time I have used a bit heavy compression, so I see a much increase in the RMS. So you get the point that if you are using Adobe Audition, then you have to, the principle of fixing the RMS system, you do that, and normalize compression and the normalize. And if you use the declicker or DSR, you can kind of actually put all your effects from this effects rack. You can actually apply all the effects you need, and you can configure and insert all the effects you need in Adobe Audition in this way. So this is how you put all the effects in order in Adobe Audition, and if you need to insert something in your recording, then you can kind of right click here, and then you can see that what kind of recording mode you have. It has instant record mode, and it is saying insert. So if I now start recording something, it is inserting there, and I can kind of, I will undo this, and if I set the punch and roll mode, so what will happen, let's see. When I click now the record, you can see an arrow appearing. If I record, it will start playing back a bit of audio, and then it will allow me to record my audio.
Is the energy field.
So you can see that
person.
It is now, yes, now you can see it has first played back some of the audio, and now it is recording my audio. So this is how you do on the Adobe Audition. And there is also another mode, like let's say you have used the punch and roll mode and you use the override. Let's see what happens with override. In override, it will override the recording. So I start, let's say I want to override this part. So how I'll do that? If I now start record,
is the energy
it will first
field
play, and then the
cursor
will appear there, and then it will start replacing the audio. You can see now it is replacing all the waveforms as it is progressing through. So depending on what kind of punch and roll you need, override or insert, you can configure in this Adobe Audition, and you can record. And the clicker technique also applies in Adobe Audition. You can use the same clicker technique to record your audio. So I think I have covered all those points in the workshop. Let me just check. Yes, I have covered all those points in the workshop, and I'll give the link to my one-to-one consulting in the description. So if you are looking for one-to-one help for audiobook or voiceover, let me know, and I'll try to help. Thanks.